for joining us and welcome to our panel discussion. I am Talima Charles and the other panelists are
My name is Otisha Peter.
My name is Diane Tikram.
My name is Nikesia Duncan.
My name is Devika Ganpat.
okay. We are tasked to enlighten you on communicative language teaching. Let's dive into our conversation. Now, communicative language teaching is an approach that refers to various principles that enlighten language through communication. This focuses on language in our day-to-day life. Now I'll hand you over to Miss Diane.
So I'm tasked in explaining how the communicative language teaching approach helps us to understand how an area in language art can be taught and learned. So I have 3 points. My first point is focus on meaningful communication. Communicative language teaching emphasizes real-life communication rather than memorization of rules. This helps teachers understand that language art areas such as speaking, writing, or reading comprehension should be taught through activities that encourage students to use language to express ideas, solve problems, and share experience. My second point, learner-centered learning. This approach highlights active student participation. It shows that language art learning happens best when students engage in peer work, group discussion, storytelling, or role play, allowing them to practice language naturally and collaboratively. And my third point, integration of language skill. Communicative language teaching promotes teaching listening, speaking, reading, and writing together in context. This helps teachers understand that language art areas are interconnected and lessons should blend these skills, for example, through projects, dialogues, or creative writing tasks that requires using multiple forms of communication. Thank you. I'll now hand you over to my next colleague.
So I'm going to give you a scenario on the communicative approach. Now, I'm a grade 3 teacher, and instead of just teaching the class or giving a lecture to the class, I would normally try and put them into small groups and give them a task to complete. Now, in this task, each group, let's say they create a short role play showing how persons help each other. For example, one group can act out a nurse treating a patient, while another group shows a firefighter rescuing someone from danger because we're doing my community. And as the students prepare, I would walk around offering sentence starters like how you how how I help you, how can I help you today? How can I offer my service? Or thank you for your service. This helps students with limited vocabulary participate confidently while each group performs. The other listen carefully and later discuss what they observe. So even though the class is large, the activity keeps everyone engaged and the students are laughing, speaking English naturally, and using the language in meaningful ways. And I can later on reflect on the lesson. Not only does the lesson build their oral and listening skills, but it also improves teamwork and confidence. I'll now hand you over to my other colleague.
Good evening, everyone. I can also share as to how this approach can be applied in our classrooms. So, as a grade 6 teacher, I've been allowing my children to do role plays or even create simulations of real world situations. For example, for social studies, they looked at the topic desirable behaviors, and I asked them to role play ways to show desirable behaviors. Now, they were given this opportunity because it allows them listen, to speak, and to display ways that are actually happening in real life. So, for example, in real life situations, they will have to display that they're polite, that they can say good morning, use various courtesy rules, and so on. Now, one of the disadvantages or a challenge that I faced in using this approach is that I have a large class size. So sometimes the time would run out and each child was not given the opportunity to do their part of the role play, and this had led to them feeling that their voice did not matter or they weren't given enough time to participate. However, I have allowed them to continue sometimes beyond the time so that they can see when they role play, they're actually bringing to life these desirable behaviors. I will now hand you over to my other colleague.
All right. So I'm going to highlight some challenges teachers face in understanding or connecting the communicative language teaching approach to practice. So I have here, as my colleague said, large class size. Now teachers may find it difficult to manage overcrowded classrooms. So then communicative tasks becomes challenging. Then we have students' readiness. Now, since students are accustomed to teacher-centered approaches, they might be shy to speak or take on the responsibility for learning. Then we have limited resources. Some schools may lack materials that support communicative tasks. So teachers may rely on textbook all the time to focus on written exercises rather than doing role plays and projects and so on. Then we have assessment difficulties now. When it comes for the tests, many schools, they do written grammar tests. Now, in conclusion, communicative language teaching transforms the language arts classroom into a more lively, interactive one. Students use language for genuine communication rather than just mere repetition all the time. Also, it fosters critical thinking, it builds confidence and fluency skills necessary for lifetime language learning. Now that brings us to the end of our presentation. So as the moderator for this panel's discussion, I'm going to ask the panelists a few questions based on their findings. So we have a few questions. Teachers, are you ready?
Yes, miss.
Yes, miss.
All right. So question 1 says, what is the main goal of the communicative language teaching? Now this is an open question. You can indicate by raising your hands if you want to answer. What is the main goal of the communicative language teaching? All right, I see we have Miss Charles. You can go ahead, Miss Charles, and share.
All right, the main goal for communicative language teaching is to facilitate meaningful communication and interaction through various strategies.
Okay, Miss, thank you for sharing. Question 2. Now, do you think the communicative language teaching is teacher-centered or student-centered? And give a reason for your answer.
Hi, Miss. Yes, I think the communicative language teaching is student-centered because it allows the pupils to be able to express themselves realistically. Instead of the teacher doing everything, instead of chalk and talk, it gives them a first-hand experience with scenarios, role play, having them doing the role play and so on.
Okay, Miss. Thank you for sharing. Question 3. What role does the teacher play in the communicative language teaching? Miss Peters, go ahead.
Yes, Miss. So the role of the teacher in the communicative language teaching approach is to act as a facilitator. So the teacher is basically there to design and manage these activities. They may design tasks, set up pairs or groups of interaction. They can control the time and they monitor the communicative outcomes. Now, in the communicative language approach, the teacher is there just to look on and monitor the children. Their focus there is to create an interactive environment where children feel comfortable expressing themselves as they see fit. So the activities there that the teacher may design is to have children be ready to use their own knowledge and guide them in their own way of speaking.
Thank you, Miss. Question 4, and this is our final question.
And
So,
miss
how do you
before
plan to deal?
and miss
Pardon?
before you go on, it is
Yes, Miss,
important to
continue.
note it is important to know that in this communicative language arts teaching approach, the teacher is just there to observe mostly and then they make their corrections at the end. As a teacher, we try not to make the corrections immediately after the child has made a mistake. Remember, we're just there to try to encourage fluency and let the communication flow. That's it, miss.
Thank you, Miss. Good point. Question 4. Now we had some challenges. So, how do you plan to deal with these challenges? How can we move ahead? What can we do? Miss Nicasia, go ahead.
Okay, so handle challenges such as maybe large classes, shy students, or limited resources. I would use group and pair activities to involve everyone. I provide sentence starters and visuals to support communication and set clear rules for teamwork, and I'll also move around the classroom to monitor groups, encourage quieter students to like speak up and to give quick feedback. And most importantly, I would create a positive environment where mistakes are seen as part of learning.
Thank you so much, Miss. So this brings us to the end of our discussion. You all did a great job. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for participating.
Thank you, miss.